Welcome back to Black Widow Fishing. I'm Bryce. Today we're going to cover the TourneyX Pro app, which is an application that is used by clubs and national level tournaments for kayak fishing in the form of catch, photo, and release, or known as CPR. The premise behind CPR is that you will receive an identifier tag with a number after you have registered for the tournament and the tournament begins. You'll go out on your kayak, you will fish, you will catch an eligible fish based on the parameters set by that particular tournament director. You will place that fish on your catch board or another approved measuring device approved by, again, the tournament director, and you'll photo it using your phone, and then you will upload that photo to the TourneyX app. That will include the location and all the metadata, as well as that identifier tag, to be able to properly log your fish and submit it to the standings. So let's go ahead and open the TourneyX app now. And so as we open the app, we're greeted with this main screen, which looks pretty basic. You have your 3-button menu on the top right. You have the check-in, check-out, identifiers, standings, tournament registration, manage catch, submit catch, your CPR live well, and take a photo. So let's go ahead and start at the top. So if we hit the 3-button menu, we're opened to this selection, which gives us general information such as the facts and customer service, our legal notices, and then more information about the TourneyX Pro app. We're not going to use anything in the general or legal notices, and we're going to skip right down to the TourneyX Pro. So if we click on Profile, we're presented with our profile, which is attached to this phone. So as you can see, my picture, my name, and then we have our ID. So that's my TourneyX ID number. So you or anybody who uses the app, whether it's the phone or the web-based application, can use that ID to look me up. And so here you'll see my name, you'll see my email address, my display name, my location, and my address and all that, which is blocked out for my privacy. If you wanted to make changes to that, you would click on the button up here in the left corner, the edit button, and now you're able to make changes to all those. And we're going to cancel that since we're not making any changes. And then to go back to the main menu, we're just going to click on the X Pro button right in the middle. And so that brings us back to the main menu. So we'll work from left to right, top to bottom. And so check in, check out, if we click that, that allows us to check in for a tournament. And some tournaments require that you check in and check out, which basically logs your location on the map, your current location, and shows it what lake or body of water you're at. Tournament directors use that to make sure you're fishing a body of water that has been permitted for use in that particular tournament, or in the case of some of the tournaments that we do that are actually in person, that we still use the app for, they use that more as a safety item to make sure everybody has got off the water in time, as well as just made it off the water in general. So clicking on one of those right now won't do anything because these tournaments are not active. This shows the tournaments that I'm currently registered for that are coming up. So we'll hit the cancel button and go back to the main menu. So now we can go to identifiers, and when we click on that, we're once again shown these two same tournaments. And both of these are going to occur at the same day and the same lake, which is why they're both there. So if we click on it, it won't provide us any information. So let's go ahead and click on it. And so it tells us that we can't view the identifier yet because the tournament has not started. The identifier is on a tag that you'll either write down or you can be presented with a hard copy, and that will go right next to the fish to verify that catch for that particular date and time. So they don't release those early, so you can't go out and catch fish before the tournament and then submit those as a catch. So both of those will show that they're not eligible right now. So we'll hit the cancel button again and go back to the main menu. So now we can go to the standings, and this should work. So when we click on the standings, we'll be presented again with the two tournaments that we're currently registered for, even though they haven't started yet. And so if we click on the top one, which is the California Bass Nation Kayak 2023 Lake Shasta, we click on that, and that brings us to the information. And so right on top, we can see our information, and it says we have a total of 0 inches because we haven't caught any fish yet. It says that there are 37 anglers who are competing in this tournament, and it'll tell you the largest fish and the smallest fish. And those are the largest fish and smallest fish for you, not for the tournament. And so as we scroll down, we can see the number of anglers who are scheduled or registered to participate in this tournament. So let's go ahead and we'll click on one. Doesn't mean that it'll necessarily do anything, but we'll click on Greg Blanchard. Since everybody seems to know who Greg is, we'll click down and it's not allowing us to actually go into it right now, because it's not open. This must have been due to a recent update. But when the tournament starts, if we were to click on Greg's name, it would show us all the fish that he has submitted up until that point. And it would include the photo, as well as for our side, we would only see the photo and the length of fish that was caught and the time that it was submitted. We won't see the location while we're in the tournament, so we can't go and fish on his spot. The tournament directors get all sorts of information from the photo that we are not allowed to. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what Greg has caught already. It just means that's what he submitted. You can very well catch fish, take your photos, and then not submit them to the app at this time and wait till the tournament is over. A lot of anglers refer to that as sandbagging, so you're not giving away any information. I personally don't do that, and I like to submit my catches right off the bat. And it can all play into how you like to fish. I particularly like to do it that way. Instead of having somebody assume that I'm either not catching fish or I'm sandbagging, I like to put the pressure on them and let them know what I have caught already. So we'll go back and we'll click back on standings again, and now we'll look at the Wild West Bass Trail 2023 Winter Classic at Lake Shasta. So we'll click on it. And on this one, since it's a different tournament, but they're run by the same people, you can once again see my information, and we can see that there are 32 anglers instead of the 37. And so we can see right off the bat that Greg Blanchard is not competing in the Wild West Bass Trail, and we have a little bit less anglers competing this time. And so the names that are listed here are just listed in a random order, but they will be the same for both tournaments. Both order. So Abel Patino, he's showing up first. If you were to go back into the California Bass Nation one, you would still see his name at the top, and he wouldn't be anywhere at the bottom. Just a little bit of insight. That doesn't really make a huge difference. So if we go back now, we can look at tourney registration, and we'll actually cover that one last because that one is the biggest tab that we have. So we can hit on Manage Catch, and so what we would do, if this was active, we would be able to go into one of these tournaments and we'd be able to see our catch that we have logged. And that means one that we've submitted and uploaded. So you're able to reshoot the photo or re-upload the photo, change the size, or delete the fish. And that really helps if you make an error when you are doing your fish. So for instance, I had a occurrence last year where I submitted a fish that I marked as 16 inches when in fact it was 19 inches. And I did not delete it, but my tournament director went in and he adjusted it based off of what he saw. Some tournament directors won't do that, and you'll be required to do that by yourself. So you can go in, you can delete that photo, or you can just adjust it and make sure the correct photo is in there. So we'll get out of there. And that is a really basic tab. It's not too complicated. And so now we'll go into Submit Catch. And so this works the same way, is we would click on which tournament we wanted to do. And unlike the other tabs, this tab allows us to click on multiple tabs. So we could click on Bass Nation as well as Wild West, and we could submit the same fish with the same photo at the exact same time. And so once we do that, we would click Submit Catch, and then it would pop up a new screen that would allow us to input the species of fish, usually if it's a multi-species fish, but in our case, most of the time it's black bass, so we would say black bass. We would upload the photo, and then we would list how long the fish is by quarters of an inch. So 1 inch, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, 1 1/3, and 2 inches. And that's all we do. And then we hit submit. It would upload it. It would reflect that on our profile, and then it would also notify the tournament director that there's a fish that needs to be judged. So once again, this tab is really simple and is not all that complicated. So we'll go back to the main menu. So here on the main menu, the next one we can see is the CPR live well. And I'll open this up. And since we don't have any fish in here, I will go ahead and just kind of briefly explain. So if we were to submit a fish to the live well, on that submit catch button, you have the option of submitting it to the standings or submitting it to the live well. You could submit it to the live well where it's all loaded and ready to go, and you just merely have to follow the instructions on the bottom of this tab, and we can see that if we swipe to the left, we'll delete that catch, and if we swipe to the right, it will submit it. And when it says submit, that means it will submit it to the standings to be judged. I personally do not use the live well. I don't want to take a chance of keeping my fish solely in the TourneyX live well and then something happening to it and I lose my catches. So I'll tell you towards the end what I do to make sure my catches are logged properly. So if we go back to the main menu, now we can come to the take photos, and this is just as it sounds, we're able to take a photo. And so we would just photo our catch, making sure the entire fish is in the photo along with the catch board. But I also do not use that tab, and I will explain why now. So what you can do is you can go to your camera right here, and you can take a regular photo, and that way it's saved in your phone or on your iCloud, whatever it is you use, and then you can come back to your app, and then you can submit your catch, and then you can upload that photo from your photo album rather than taking a photo. And so that protects you if anything happens to the app, whether it crashes or you don't have data, you still have that photo and all the relevant metadata that you need to be able to submit that catch properly. And so that's how I do mine, so I don't use either of the bottom tabs. Now, when we come back to our tourney registration tab, we'll click on it. And so now we're presented with a whole lot of information. As we scroll, we can see all these things. These are different tournaments that are either happened. Let's see. So these two on top have already happened, and I'm not sure why they still show up in here. Maybe it's something to do with the app. I'm not really sure, but that's how it goes. And so we can search a tournament by name. So if we put in WWBT for Wild West Bass Trail, it'll pop up the information, and it shows us that the tournament is on January 8th, and it gives us the name, it gives us the location, as well as the date and time, and it tells us what time lines are out. And so that means that's the last chance you can submit a catch. And so we see that that is 3 p.m. at Lake Shasta. So if we click on registered anglers, it will take us back to the page that we were previously at, to where we can see who is registered for this tournament. And we can see that our name is right there. So we can hit done, and it'll bring us back to here. So if we want to click on tourney info, it will bring up the information card that you can see here. And it once again gives us all this information. And so the ID release time is the time at which the app is scheduled to release that identifier code that you would write or have a hard copy for your photos. It tells you who the tournament director is and how to contact them from both the email as well as a phone number. And then it has all the information about the actual tournament. So this is the time or info card. So it tells us that we have to check in on the app at 6:30. At 6:30, we're able to go from the dock. We're able to launch. We should already be in the water at this point, but that means we can leave. And we can also start fishing at the same time. And so it tells us lines are out at 3. We have to be off the water at 3:30. And our last submission is at 4. And there will be a virtual award ceremony. And the home base for the tournament will be at the Bridge Bay Marina. And this it gives you some information about checking in and checking out and what will happen. It gives you the registration. It tells you how to pay your fee for the tournament, where it's at, and requirements. And then it goes ahead and goes into some of the rules about the tournament. And so since this one's a local one and it's a trail that we fish all the time, we don't necessarily need to read that. It tells us what type of fish that we're going to be fishing for. It tells us the cost of this entry. And then it'll allow you to upload or view the leaderboard, as well as take a hero shot and add it to the tournament page. And a hero shot is basically where you're holding up a fish that you're proud of. So that's for one that we're already registered for. And if we wanted to register for it, this would say register instead of registered, and it would be red, and we could click on that to register for it. So let's go back to this page again. So we'll click back on tourney registration. So if we hit this little button that says show registered events, I've personally never had this happen, or had it work, so I don't know if it's actually going to work, but when we click on it, it says no data found. I think that's an error with the app. It's never worked for me. So we'll undo that. And so it takes us back to all the tournaments that are still here. So there's a couple things that we can do. We've already searched by one. We can hit this filter icon, and then we can search and filter tournaments by where they're located. So if we want to do any tournament that's in California, we'll select California, we'll hit OK, and then we'll hit apply. And so now it'll show us all the tournaments that are scheduled to happen in California. And so this means any tournaments that are going to be live in person in the state of California, or online tournaments that will occur nationwide, and California is eligible to compete in those. So let's go back to the top. Well, let's actually find one that hasn't happened yet. So we'll scroll. So we'll do this one right here. So let's say we'll click on this one that says January 6th Sport Bass South Region Friday Whoppers number 40. So we'll click on that, tourney info, and so now it'll show the complete name, all the same information that we had before. So it tells you the start time is January 6th at 5 a.m. and the end time is January 6th at 10 p.m. Gives you the tournament director's email, their contact number, and then here it gives us all the information about the tournament that we need. So since this is not a tournament that we have competed in before, we would need to go ahead and actually read all of these rules. And so we can see that there's a half-inch deduction if the mouth of the fish is open in the picture. The head needs to be to the left and the tail on the right of the board, which is standard in all tournaments. And then it also tells us which boards are eligible, and they will only be the ones that you can buy at a fishing store or fishing warehouses. It'll tell you about the ID code. It says you can't use any tape measures. It says no IDs on the phone will be DQ'd, and so on and so forth. And then it gives you the fee breakdown of what it costs, and then how they distribute that money based on the cost. And then it tells you the payback percentage. So if there's only 2 to 5 people competing, only first place will win, and so on and so forth. And so then it goes and it tells you that all species of bass, which are black bass, smallmouth bass, and spotted bass, are eligible for this tournament. And they do it that way because some locations don't have smallmouth, some locations don't have spotted, some might have Guadalupe bass, and some might just have largemouth bass. So it really just depends. And so they do that to be more transparent. And then we can see the leaderboard as well. So let's click on the leaderboard, and we can see that there's no one who is registered for this tournament as of yet. So this would be one that I would have to think about if I was going to compete or not, because there's nobody in it just yet. But if we come to this nationwide winter bass one, we can click on registered anglers, and we can see who's registered. This is good for if you are trying to beat somebody specific. So say you're competing, just for bragging rights or the power rankings for Kayak Bass Nation that they put out. And you want to compete against a specific individual, you can search for them, or you can look for their names in any of these tournaments. And so this is also where you register. So now, as you can see, the blue buttons that say register, if we were to click it, it would bring us up, and then we can pay for it, and we'll block out all of our address and all that information. And then once you hit registered, it would deduct that amount of money from your card or account that you have tied to the app, and then it would send you confirmation emails, and then you would be registered for that tournament. So that is all for the TourneyX app. It is really easy to use. There are a few tournaments that you can compete on online that I recommend for any beginners. TourneyX, you won't see any of the KBF or kayak bass fishing tournaments on here, as they use a different app. But I would suggest you just get on here and filter by your state and see what tournaments are occurring in your state, and then just sign up for maybe 1 or 2 low limit tournaments, because they can range anywhere from $25 and I've seen some up to $5,000. It just depends on the tournament, the prestige, and the people who are competing in there, as well as the sponsorships for that tournament. So just find a low level one and use it as a practice. You might end up winning some money, you might not, but it'll give you that good experience and the comfortability to go ahead and compete in more tournaments or bigger tournaments. So that is it for the TourneyX app. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section or email me, and I'll catch you next time.